haven't met a single person that cares about this part of the video, but I'll go through it anyway. The context is there's a rapper called Tom McDonald, and he really likes men. And I had a liking for Ben Shapiro in particular. So they got together, they had a 20-minute makeout session. They released Facts, a political song that, if I'm honest, blows so hard there's no candles for the next 6 star systems. Ephraim agreed with me personally and covered the video, and then Nicholas took issue with his video and covered it. Ephraim then got myself and Turn to the TV together to cover it in a try-up that honestly is pretty 5 out of 10. There's some flawed points, the editing's kind of awkward, and it really doesn't really fit with my delivery. River's delivery can be kind of slurred. Anyways, RhymerTheNiamzer, I think that's how you pronounce it. Used to go by Hypocritical Lizard, that's the name I know them by at least. Covered it. And honestly, I don't really agree with the criticisms given out, so of course, because the world revolves around me, of course I'm the one covering it.
Okay guys, because we're talking about slideshow commentators today, I'll be going into this avatar. It is the return of Never Gonna Get That New Microphone Creeper. Let's just get into it.
No, Creeper! Why must you get trapped inside such a dastardly box? Sending virtual hugs.
So I've been noticing within the past year or so, the commentary videos, they've been getting political.
What do you mean by in the last year? The commentary community has always had its political aspects going back to our origins with people like Boomstick545, who made a large number of videos, among other things, debunking the arguments of homophobes. Doodle Tones' commentaries actually began rather political, doing videos on people like Rebel Media and Joshua Fernstein, compared to her modern work where political issues are rarely brought up.
I don't know, Ephraim. Maybe he means more in the last year, but I don't know. Speculation? And oh my gosh, Doodle Tones did it. Meaning that commentaries today aren't getting more political because Doodle Tones doesn't do it anymore. Mind-blowing.
There's a couple things to go over here, like 4 of them, so I'll get the quickest 2 out of the way and then move on to the longer ones. Number 1, Doodle was brought up as an example and not as the sole reason for videos getting less political over time, so framing the point you do isn't very fair on Ephraim. It's also not like Ephraim only brought up Doodle Tones. He did also bring up Boomstick545 as another example in this very clip. Number 2, the aspect ratio. It sucks. I don't know what you'd do to fix it. I imagine looking around tutorials of whatever editor you use. Number 3, the tone. It's really irritating. Normally, I'd hold off because it doesn't really matter if I find a tone irritated if it's not directed at me, but in this case, it is my business. I'm one of the targets of the video. Now, mind you, maybe you aren't here to help, but if you are, then I'd suggest changing how you talk because I can look past it, but that doesn't mean I don't find it irritating. Number 4, what's with the using creepers stills for a character? Like, did you get permission? Because that is a form of character and art theft if you're taking art not given to you to use and using it to represent yourself or a character. Won't speak on it a ton because I do feel the issue is kind of obvious and I don't want to go on for too long about it. 5, you say maybe Nicholas meant over the past year, but I would argue that Ephraim saying these videos have always had their political aspects like he does goes ahead and dismantles that. Since Ephraim saying no real change has occurred over the past year, so he is still addressing the argument that you're presenting, or at least saying that Nicholas is presenting.
And most people within the CC, pretty left-leaning. That's just expected from that kind of community.
What kind of community? A community that does commentaries? What about the act of making commentaries associates it with left-wing politics? I'm already rather confused and the video just started.
I don't know, Ephraim. I just have this sneaking suspicion it's the community you're in, as you're the person he's covering in the video. So he's most likely talking about your community, which is mostly left-leaning.
Originally in this interjection, I'd written a plain bit, but I thought it was really unfunny, so I'll just mention that the bit contained Eb having a single rotting soot-covered Cheerio. That is now canon to the lore. But nah, I think you're missing the point. Ephraim's question isn't asking what community Nicholas was referring to, like in a legitimate sense. He was asking what about the SCC specifically made it the type of community that would be more typically left-wing. It's made a little bit more apparent after the clip you play.
A community that does commentaries? What about the act of making commentaries associates it with left-wing politics?
A viewer for a long time, and a lot of these videos have been kind of annoying, so I just decided to throw my hat in the ring as somewhat of a right-wing voice, if you want to call it that.
Alrighty, now that we're 30 seconds into the video, the presentation of this video is incredibly Z-core. It is this single image, no background looking ass for the entire video. Ultimately, I am making a point that can amount to boo, presentation boring. But suggestions would be using a moving background or, well, a background of any variety. That being said, given the mostly black and white Saw Nicholas, perhaps maybe a more muted color scheme might look good with that. Depending on what you're going for, using multiple images could help. And of course, there's always keyframing, if you want to put the work into that, of course. Though the point is ultimately do anything to make your video look appealing.
Also, out of sheer curiosity, why is your avatar somebody who failed as badly at World War I as Tsar Nicholas II? For that matter, why is your avatar someone whose government was overthrown by Lenin? I'm just saying, if you wanted to pick a Russian leader, why not one who was actually good at governing? Or at least good enough he never had to deal with a successful coup by communists?
Fractured Light, your opinion was very nitpicky. You trying to dismiss all opinion by having a joke like that means we're really not open to a conversation about how nitpicky you were.
I think you're making a bit of an assumption there, because ultimately the joke I made about it being just production boring isn't actually meant to dismiss any altering opinions. If you don't care, that's fine. The intent behind that statement is to clarify that I'm aware I'm nitpicking, considering commentaries are a primarily auditory medium. That being said, I don't really see the problem with this specific nitpick. I felt it was important enough to mention, and I don't see any arguments that would explain to me why my point would be too irrelevant to mention. Since sure, commentaries are an audio medium, but there are still people, sick, weird people with no social skills, friends, or milk. Why am I hating on a portion of my audience that still watch commentaries, and visual stimulation would definitely improve the experience. Also, I'm very autistic and I very much like editing.